Hello everybody, Andrew Blake from the digitalaudiomanual.com. Today we're going to do a full and complete workup where I'm going to compose something, produce it, mix it, and master it. The whole purpose being to give you a chance to basically just look over my shoulder, see what I do. Hopefully you'll gain some ideas from this process. I have no idea where it's going to go, what kind of music I'm going to produce at this moment. I'm just opening up a Cubase session and I'm going to go for it. So let's begin. I've already opened up Cubase with my standard template. The first thing I want to do is save it. So I open up the dialog to save it, give it a name, and then hit save. So I'm going to base this song on picking up my guitar and doing some live playing. So I'm going to open up the tracks where I record my guitar typically. I'm going to open up the mixer, which I always open up on a separate monitor, but I'm going to put it here where we can see it. Let's add a workspace with this. I'll just call this mixer, hit OK. First thing I need to do is make sure my guitar is in tune. Let's test the audio, make sure it's recording. You can see the waveform, so we're good there. Turn off that click and record some audio. Play it back. Good enough. Let's analyze this and see what the tempo is. Go up to Project, on the tempo track, and tempo detection. Tell it to analyze. Let's see how we did. Back up to audio, advanced, and set definition from tempo. Hit OK. I need to put an extra signature here. Switch over to my pencil tool, draw it in. I'm going to move these extra tracks that got created out of the way. Then I'm going to bring this audio down to its own track. It looks like it's around 110. I'm going to turn off this tempo and set this to 110. Let's see if that's close. Yeah, that works. Then I'm going to add this to the chord track, see if it analyzed and did my chords properly. And it looks like it did perfect. Maybe a little too perfect because everything is all on the syncopation. So I'm going to actually quantize this a bit. I'm going to quantize it to eighth notes. That looks pretty good. Then right away I'm going to use the arranger track to clean this up. So I'm going to build everything from one simple idea here. So I'll draw a little arranger part. Open the arranger track. I'm going to repeat that 3 times. Tell it to flatten the chain. I'm going to get rid of the first and last part just to give myself a little space to work with. Change the view of my tracks. And with all of that out of the way, now we can start putting in some instruments. I'm going to use Nexus, add some basic synths here. I'm going to start out with this Rhodes sound. Record that in. That gives me this track. Then I can simply just drag a track down, add another layer. I'm going to choose an arpeggio here, record that in. I'm going to add another arpeggio for a texture, get this sound going. Let's get one more, an arpeggio like this. Then I want to add these all into a folder and a group, and then we have this. Changing this view. Let's make a simple bass part. Record that in. Again, I'm going to put these into a group and a folder. Looks like this. Let's get some basic drums going. Record that in. Drag this down. Change these drums and get a clap sound. Record that in. Record a hi-hat in here. Just playing the keys, looking for different drum sounds. Like this reverb clap. Record that in there. Let's add this shaker. I'm going to use a sampler track and bring in a bongo sound. And then again, I'm going to put these all in a group and a folder. And it looks like this. At this point, I think I want to bring some strings in here. In my template, I keep a set of templates. If you haven't seen my video about one template to rule them all, I want to check that out. I have all the Steinberg templates. One of them is the orchestral template. You can open that up, go to the strings folder. Then I'm going to add a MIDI track in here. Bring my chords down into the MIDI track. And then again, if you haven't seen my video on Explode the Chords, you may want to check that out because we're going to do that right now. It gives me a set of separated MIDI tracks by voicings. I can simply take these now and drag them up into the Hallian strings. Then I can open all these MIDI parts up in the key editor and draw in some modulation data. I'm going to assign a VCA to all of these tracks. Select them, right click, say add a track, and say VCA track to selected tracks. And I can take my VCA fader, control all those strings together. Makes a really nice texture. I'm going to need some more sounds for variety as I go through this arrangement and build it up. Let's go back and find some more sounds. I think I'm going to switch over to Hallion just as a contrast. With any of the Cubase synthesizers, really anything Steinberg, get a real good browser over in the media rack. Click on this Hallion. You can take any of these sound sets. Let's see what this trium sounds like. Now you can just play a few notes. Then this MIDI recorder will remember that, and you can quickly audition these other sounds. Let's see what that one does. Say create a track. All of these I'm using the chord tab and the live input, set to chords. So if I don't drag chords down, I can also just hold keys on my keyboard. They're going to follow the chord track. It makes it easy to create all these little textured parts. I try to keep my fader around 0, set my initial volume levels, changing the pre-gain makes it easier for mixing. Sometimes you can't do that, but most of the time I try to do that and turn this down with the pre-gain. Let's see what other sounds we have here. Some of these are just too much, but it's fun to try different sounds. Let's go back and try a different pack, see what's in voltage. Let's try that. No, that one don't work. Let's try this one. Yeah, that works. Let's record that. Let's get one more. Try a little Vangelis going on here. That'll do for now. Put all these into a group and folder. I have shortcut keys for all this stuff. That's why it goes by pretty quick. We'll call it Hallion group and change this to Hallion folder. Now we have this. All right, let's see if we can get a little vocal line in here. Just something simple. Back to our loops and samples. Let's see what Bloom has. See what happens if we chop these up. I'm going to put them in a sampler track. Turn on the option for slice. Let's try a little bit different vocal chain. Got this broken radio one in here. Let's try that one. Before I go any further, I'm just going to do some basic things here. Each one of these MIDI tracks, I'm going to bounce them just in case there's some extra lanes or other bits of MIDI behind these tracks. Okay, we're ready to start making some kind of arrangement. We're going to do most of our mixing as we go through the arrangement. So the first thing we're going to do, Control All with all these parts. For me, I can hit Shift M, and that just mutes everything. I just take my mute tool, and I start looking for something that catches my attention as far as where I want to start. I think we'll go right with that piano to start with. Then I do a global copy, copy everything over, and decide what I want to do with this part. And that works. Do another global copy, check this part out. And then do another global copy. And we're off and running. I keep a copy of Endless Smile on my Submaster. Everything is sent to my Submaster. If you've never seen this plugin, it's this funny looking thing. This does a lot of effects, just one knob. Then I can do these kind of sweeps at the end of a section, kind of like this. Gives it that thin build-up, fade-out part. Let's do a little basic mixing here. Because these sounds are good, they need a little TLC. Let's start with our piano part. Take out some of that mid, add a little bit of high to it. Same thing on this next ARP part. I need to bring some transitions in here to bring this all alive a bit. And what I've done to save myself a lot of work, come down to import, made my own track archive where I put a lot of my transitions into the lanes of one track. Then I saved it as this track archive. So I can bring this back in as one track. This has all kinds of transitions in it, risers, cymbals, reverse cymbals, snare roll. I have to create the risers because I never know what key I'm going to be in. This is E minor. I have a synthesizer here that has the glide enabled. So what I can do is basically take my line tool, start on whatever note I want. In this case, it's going to be an E riser. So I just find the note E, and I click and drag this straight line and go all the way up and across. It draws in all these notes. Right now they work like steps. If I hit Control All and stretch them out a little bit, because the glide is enabled on this synthesizer, makes a smooth glide. And I need to work on the balance of these synths again. Another trick you can do is hold Alt and Shift. You can move a fader or your pre-gain. You take everything down at one time. You can reset these faders to 0, and every one of these tracks are readjusted. Then one by one I can reset them. I'm going to add just a touch of OTT on this synth group. At this point, I'm going to adjust this arranger track so I have one piece over this whole verse. So again, I do a global copy. Now I take this whole section and repeat it. We begin trying to make some kind of variety, so we're not just doing an endless loop. First thing we'll bring in is the kick drum. Bring the bass in with that. Go to the next few bars. I'm adding this hi-hat in. That needs a little bit of mixing. Let's go back to the instrument, see if we can put a little reverb on that. Let's go to our next few bars. I'll bring these bongos in. Now I can start mixing against the other sounds, so I can hear a little better what frequencies I need to adjust. Then some last bars here. As we get to this first build-up, we need another element in here, some kind of high element. Let's just try some kind of airy piano. Let's repeat that over this part. Sounding pretty good. This piano needs a little bit more to it. See what happens if we add a little bit of shaper box filter in here. That sounds good. Moving into the second section, I added the viola and the extra bongo. Because it lost some energy here, now it seems to be flowing pretty good. Yeah, that's moving along pretty good. All right, moving on. I want to add a hi-hat in here. I'm going to trim off what I don't want, copy this across the whole song, and mute out what I don't want. I'm going to select this part. Again, do a global copy. Here's where I like to start changing the MIDI up a little bit. We've had the kick and the bass doing the same thing for a little while. What I'm going to do is just grab the kick, mute it out. Then I'm going to play a different kick pattern here. Duplicate it across. Let's see what we can do to the bass part as well. Mute these out. Make the bass part more legato. MIDI functions, legato. I come back and say delete the overlaps for poly. That sounds good. Duplicate that. I think we can add the clap in now. I turn the cello on. For me, when I'm doing these arrangements, I'm just constantly looking to where I feel the energy drop out. Maybe I can add an extra element there. Maybe I can remove some elements, make it change that way. Either way, I need to feel something change, so I never feel it's just an ongoing repetition. That's really the thing I'm trying to share with you. Whatever style you're into, maybe think about that. At this point, I'm going to repeat everything, select all the previous parts, again, do a global copy. And what we don't want to do is just play the same part exactly as it is. So as we begin this, I want to listen to what we can change that's different from the original. Or the first few bars, we get a real drop in all the elements as this new part begins. Last time we had just the piano. What can we do to change that up a little bit? I'm going to add the cello in here. And then these next bars, this comes in. Let's see if we can calm that sound down and add a little variety to it. Let's add a little automation and the filter change. I'm going to copy that automation over. And then right here, I don't want it to jump right back into the song. Go up and draw on the bar how much you want. Hit Control, Shift, and E. And that just moves everything over. Then we get an effect like this. At this point, I'm not really sure I need this extra part. I think I might want to get right back into where it picks up, which is great about the arranger track. I'm going to rename this so I know what part it is. Now I can just skip over this. Let's make some kind of ending. I'm going to draw a final chord in here, E minor. Drag this chord down to most of these. Adjust this automation a little bit. This last section right now is just a repeat of what happened before. So let's see if we can add something or take something away so it's not a complete repeat. I've been listening to that main top line for a while. See what happens if we take that out, maybe use some of these other elements that we put in here before. Those are all those Italian sounds. Let's mix these real quick. Again, that ending comes in too abrupt. I'm going to add an extra bar there. Again, Control, Shift, E. We haven't used these vocals yet. I'm going to add these into a couple of places. It sounds like this. That's pretty much it. Before I move on to mastering this, I'm going to back this project up to File, Backup Project. At this point, let's give it some kind of name. We'll call it Blue Skies. Change the name from the backup project. I don't want to keep the current project active. All the rest I'm going to leave and say OK. So now we're going to take this into Wavelab. I'm going to select all my arranger events and then export this. You have the option to set this to project name. I'm going to do that. And then there's an option down here that says after export, open up in Wavelab. I'm going to go ahead and hit Export Audio. It starts opening the Wavelab interface. And there's our stereo mix in Wavelab. So here we go. Almost without exception, once I bring something into Wavelab and I listen to it, I'm going to hear something that I didn't hear in the mixing process. And just looking at the wave, I can see I have a little bit more spiking going on than I usually would like to see. If I play a little bit of it, My first thought is I'm getting a little bit of buildup for the kick and the bass because that's where I can see these hits are happening. And now you get to see one of the great advantages we have using Cubase and Wavelab is that I can go back now and make my own revision, refining something I can see may just become an issue trying to master this. Instead of working extra hard trying to fix it as a master, I can just go back into Cubase and make some adjustments. So let's investigate something. It's a common problem and see how it affects everything. Many times, the kick and the bass can begin to build up and they're both hitting at the same time. Let's do a little side chaining and see what effect that has. I'm going to open up the bass group, hit the channel strip, turn the compressor on. I'm going to open this compressor up. And in here I can turn on the side chain and hold Alt, click it and select a source. Need to look for my kick drum. I have such a long list of stuff, I'm just going to type kick in. Here it is right here. I always set this stuff to pre-fader. And I'm going to solo the bass and the kick. I'm going to turn this release down, turn off this auto gain. Now I'm going to bring this threshold down. I'm turning it down to exaggerate it so you can hear it. Now let's unsolo this. Let's add this on the synthesizers as well, see what happens. Although we won't go as extreme. Go to the synth group, turn on the compressor, sidechain, select the source. I'm going to adjust the threshold just to hear it. We have this option if we want to open Wavelab with recent files or without any recent files. Because I may add some revisions from Cubase, I'm going to switch this over and say open it along with recent files. Then back in Cubase, I'm going to do an export again, select my arranger track, and then do the export. But I'm going to give this a different name, call it Blue Skies Sidechain, and then export it. And now that file has been imported into Wavelab. And as I look at the wave, it's very much less spiky, and that term crest factor comes to mind because we have more of the song and less of those little peaks. We go back to the original one, we can see that it's way more spiky. What a difference. Looking at the first import and looking at the second one. No limiting or anything like that, just simply adding that side chain in so the frequencies don't build up too high in particular areas. And again, that's what's great about Wavelab. You can do these things in Cubase, but you get just a different perspective on the whole thing when you come into Wavelab. This newer version of Wavelab has brought so many great new improvements from the way Wavelab has been pretty much all the time. First thing is that we can now create these projects that are self-contained and all the information stays in the project. That's the first thing we're going to do is save this project. If I go up to this little picture of buttons, I'm going to come down to where it says save the current session as a new project, choose my destination folder, call this Blue Skies master session. So much is automatically done when you do that. I'm going to be able to consolidate files, just many things that we need. The next thing I want to do is create a montage. Go up to this button, say audio montage. Again, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to save it in the project location, keep everything in the project now, and create. I can right click in the montage, tell it to insert audio files, choose the file I want, and say OK. Lots of options here. Basically, everything is now going to go into an audio folder in this project. At this point, I'm going to go right back up to this little lit up button. I'm going to tell it to consolidate. This is just going to help to bring any external files so that they're in my project. Again, all that stuff is more than we want to dive into right now, but great options. Now, back in the montage, we have some basic things to do. We want to trim this file up, get rid of all the extra parts that we don't need. Sometimes this option for auto split works for me. I have a preset in here, and that did what I needed. Took off the beginning and the end. I'm going to go to this fade tab. It allows me to automatically put in a fade in and a fade out. I can zoom to the fade out just to make sure, and go ahead and add markers. When you're using Wavelab, you want to learn how to use your own particular default montage, because then you can populate your montage with the right metadata that you're looking for and other kinds of preferences, the sample rate, any number of things. I've already set this up as a default montage. Anytime I open a montage in Wavelab, it automatically uses my default. I'm going up to the album tab, choose the album wizard. I'm going to choose my preset, which basically does nothing except for to add the markers and quantize to CD frames, apply. I'm going to go up to process. I'm going to use the meta normalizer, change my pregain to -16 and hit apply. Then I'm going to bring in the master rig. I'm down here, add an effect, master rig. I'm going to add a compressor, make the link absolute, turn on all these auto releases, the attack up a little bit. I'm going to bring these thresholds down until I get a little bit of a response. I'm going to choose the saturation, experiment with that a little bit. I'm going to use the imager, check out those options a little bit. And then finally, I'm going to bring in the limiter. I'm setting this output right at 0, turning this optimized down, switching this over to modern. And so far, I haven't really paid any attention to how loud this is. That's not my main concern right now. I'm trying to make this sound as good as it can to match my taste. I have my listening level where it sounds loud enough, but I'm really not paying attention to the wave itself, just going for what sounds good. This limiter, I'm going to use just a little bit of this optimize where I think it sounds good. Then a great feature, again, that Wavelab has, in the master section, I keep another master rig. This is set to a brick wall, but it's only reading true peaks. It has the oversampling on. One thing you can do is hit this button up here, and you get to hear what happens on the effect only. In other words, what is this last limiter doing to it? I'm going to play this and turn this on and off a couple times. Right now, the limiter isn't even cutting into the song in any way. That's the preferred way for me, but I know we can go a little bit louder to maximize the headroom here. So what I'm going to do now, go back to process, meta normalizer, to change this from pre-gain over to post-gain. I'm going to tell this, set the loudness to -11, hit apply. Now when I look up on my loudness meter, I can see everything is at -11. I'm going to go ahead and do a test render. I want to see what we have so far. I hit render, come up to analyze, do global analysis, analyze it. The integrated loudness is -13, but the short-term loudness is around -10. Might as well go ahead and put the metadata in here. Many great tools in Wavelab to use for this stuff. Hit OK. I'm going to render this again. And that's it. This song is ready to go. So sit back and have a listen. I'm going to play the track from start to finish. Hopefully you've learned a few things along the way. Thanks for being here. Be sure to check out the digitalaudiomanual.com for more great videos and tutorials. And I'll see you next time.